And a huge thank you to Purina for making community connection events like this possible through their generous financial support. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So we're gonna just start out by going over this overview of the topics we're going to be covering today. So we're going to be talking about the importance of play and why dogs need to play. And then we're going to be going through some videos of safe play, questionable play, which, might be a little bit higher energy or potentially getting into that maybe unsafe territory. And then we're going to talk about what unsafe interactions look like. And then after we see all of those videos, we're going to talk a little bit about preventing unsafe interactions and how we can really facilitate safe play in our dogs. All right, so first we're just going to talk about why play is important to our dogs. In most mammals, play is really only for juveniles or young animals, and they use play to learn about their own limits and abilities and to prepare them for being an adult. So, things like hunting and all of that they'll need to know as they get older. Dogs and humans, though, are some of just a very few species that will continue playing into adulthood. So it's actually really important to our dogs' well-being that they're allowed and encouraged to play throughout their lives. Play helps puppies and dogs to learn about social rituals and how to communicate appropriately. And it can also help them learn how to bite more softly so other dogs don't get hurt and leave the game. And also to regulate their own arousal levels, how excited they're getting. Because some dogs, they really don't like to play with very, very excited dogs. So it teaches those dogs to bring down their energy levels, teaches other dogs to bring theirs up to match. Play is learned through experience, right? So, especially with dogs of similar ages. But adults will also help puppies learn appropriate ways of playing by continuing play while the puppy is behaving appropriately, and then ending play when the puppy is not, right? And so, teaching them that way. Dogs are also quite unique in that they can learn to play from and with humans as well, right? So they're not only playing with other dogs, they'll play with us too. This is a really important bonding practice, and it is, of course, lots of fun for us and for the dog. This is the hierarchy of dog needs, which really just covers everything from basic things like sleep and nutrition to higher level things like training and problem solving and all of that. Um, I've highlighted the social needs section here in green, and that's just to show you that this is really a critical need in the dog's life, right? And it comes even before training needs, right? A dog who isn't getting enough social interaction or enough safe play and social interaction will show that they're just a little bit harder to train, right? They might not be as ready to play. Plus, we've also all noticed that dog play really does tire out our dogs in ways that we can't do for them. So it's a really great and fun way to deplete their energy so that they're again more successful in their training and really are feeling satisfied. Does anyone have any questions about the purpose of play in dogs? All right, so now that we've established that play is an important part of a dog's life, we're going to start by going through a series of videos that shows examples of safe play. When we are looking for signs that play is safe and fun for all the dogs involved in play, it can help to keep this Mars mnemonic in mind. So M stands for meta signals, and those are just behaviors that indicate that the interaction following is all in good fun, right? Something like a play bow. A stands for activity shifts, and that's looking for our dogs to take breaks, right, and shift from play to sniffing, back to play to lying down and taking a break without any sort of upset, right? And that's just a normal part of play. R stands for role reversals, and that's just when dogs are switching back and forth between positions in a game. So if you've got one dog that's mouthing another, and then after a little bit of that, the other dog will mouth back, right? Or one dog is chasing another, and then they switch, and the other dog is chasing. Those are role reversals. S stands for self-handicapping, which is when a dog purposefully makes themselves an easier target for a dog that maybe is smaller or shyer than they are. So as we go through the following videos, I'll point out how the different behaviors we talk about sort of factor into this Mars concept. All right, so we'll go ahead and just watch this video of play vows. This is probably a familiar one to most people. So you can see the dog has their front end towards the ground, their back end is still up in the air. You've got those nice wagging tails showing that this is all in good fun. You also want to look for a relaxed mouth and a soft face in play. So you can see these dogs' tongues are lolling out, their lips are loose, and they've got really soft eyes, soft faces as they're playing around here together. There's no tension in their faces at all. Another thing to look for as far as body language goes is a relaxed tail. So you can see in this video, these two dogs are playing in a pretty sedate way, but their tails are still wagging, and it's kind of that low, slow wag that is very relaxed. And you can also see their bodies are very loose and curvy, right? There's not any real tension there, and they're going around in these circles, right? You don't see a lot of that loose curving body language from dogs that are more tense. So really looking at your dog's entire body to see that relaxation as they're playing. So this next one is another of those sorts of meta signals that's offering the butt. You can see that that dog just kind of moved his bottom closer to the other dog and kind of pushed into him a little bit. And that's a good sign that they're wanting to continue play. So we looked at this video before in the concept of relaxed body language, but now we're going to look at it for role reversals. So you can see these dogs kind of going back and forth, right? The smaller dog starts mouthing, then the bigger dog starts mouthing, and they're just kind of switching around, whose mouth is on the other and going back and forth in a really nice, polite way. All right. So now we're going to talk a little bit about those activity shifts. And this is an example of that. So really what an activity shift involves is just taking a break and being able to take a break after even intense play. So you can see these dogs are chasing each other, right, running around, and then they just stop. And one of the dogs starts sniffing. The other dog comes back around saying like, how about we play some more? And no, so they take a break. The black dog lies down, and the other dog can just wander off. So this is a really good example of some healthy play, right? They were able to communicate, all right, I'm pretty tired from that chase. Let's take a little break. And they both did that. So that's a really good sign of healthy play. Mirroring is another one of those sort of meta signals to look for. So what it just means is that the dogs kind of copy each other. The one dog rolls over, the other dog rolls over, right? It's just showing that they're really paying attention to what the other dog is doing, and they're saying, oh yeah, that's a fun way to play, let's do that, and just rolling over together. So this is going to be some examples of self-handicapping. And again, this is something that we talked about in that Mars mnemonic, and you'll see that here. All right, so you can see here the brown dog is kind of lying on his back. He's a lot bigger than that younger dog that's on top of him, right? And so he's handicapping himself by being on his back. Now in this video, you've got a little pug, but that's an adult dog. And then this other brown and white dog is a puppy. And so you can see actually the little dog is the one doing the self-handicapping, right? Rolling over and down, and just to show that he's not a threat. Now, in this video, you can see the bigger dog is self-handicapping for that little pug, right? So you're seeing them make that play session more fun for the smaller dog by kind of evening out the playing field a little bit. In this video, you'll see what we call inhibited mouthing, and that's just referring to their ability to soften their mouths and be very gentle in the way that they're putting their mouths on each other. So you can see here, the brown dog has his mouth all over the leg of the tan dog, and if it will keep playing. Now the tan dog has the brown dog's ear, right? They're being very gentle with each other. We all know how hard a dog can bite, and they're clearly not exerting full pressure. They're making sure that this is a very playful and fun interaction for both of them. Now, we also want to talk a little bit about acceptable cutoff cues. And what that means is, if one dog wants to stop playing, they can give kind of a cutoff cue to the other dog. And if the other dog respects that, that's a sign of really good, safe play. We'll go ahead and show what that looks like here. So you can see that white and brown dog in the middle did a cutoff cue for this brown dog here. As soon as their head went over his body, he kind of turned around with his mouth and stopped that interaction. And this dog here in the front respected that response and just turned and walked away. And they were able to kind of peacefully resolve that interaction. Cutoff cues can be pretty hard for us to catch because they can happen so quickly, right? We slowed this down twice in order to be able to see that motion from the dog in the middle there. So this is something that might be a little bit harder to catch, but it's definitely something to look out for when your dog is playing with other dogs. All right, in this video, we have some play vocalizations. So some dogs vocalize when they play, and that's normal in some breeds or types of dogs, or if they've just learned to do that, right? So being aware that not every vocalization is, a bad sign, but being able to tell the difference between the play vocalizations and the more serious vocalizations. So here you can hear a little bit of growling between these dogs playing tug. That's totally normal. You can see kind of from that body language, right? They're fairly relaxed. The tails are still.
You said speak. Yeah, good girl.
That's some excited barking there. So it's not aggressive, just excited. But that's another thing that you will often see from dogs who are kind of watching other dogs play, right? That they might be barking and being excited about the play that they're watching. So that's normal. All right. Does anyone have any questions about what safe play looks like, or any of those specific behaviors that we looked at in the context of that Mars um, concept that we talked about first? Okay. All right, so all of the play videos we just watched demonstrated really good, healthy play and kind of what to look for to keep an eye out for that. So next, what we're going to talk about is just some more questionable play antics. So what I mean by that is, to some dogs, these may be pretty impolite and indicate that play is getting to be too much for one of the dogs involved there. So these are just behaviors to kind of watch out for in play. And if you see your dog kind of doing these consistently over and over, and maybe other dogs are getting a little bit discouraged, encourage them to take a break just to cool off a little bit, and then come back to it afterwards. So first we'll have this example of vertical play. And that just means that the dogs are kind of meeting each other up in the air. So you'll see this little brown and white dog is jumping up almost to their kind of full height to get on top of the black dog there. And the black dog is mostly keeping all 4 feet on the ground, and then sort of engages the dog in that more vertical play. Just a few times, but you can see that the black dog is not really necessarily into playing like that. That might be a little bit too much high energy. She does kind of come back at that dog and try to engage in that way. So that's showing that that's still pretty safe, but it's definitely something to watch for, right? That black dog might start getting annoyed with the sort of exuberance of that type of play. So just really being aware when dogs start doing that, how both dogs are feeling in that situation. A chin over is another pretty impolite way of playing. So you can see the smaller dog tries to put their chin and paws over the black dog's back. She's being very good natured about it because it's a younger dog, a smaller dog. But it was clearly something that she wasn't really wanting, right? 'Cause she was moving her body away again. And you see the black dog is kind of offering the butt, like, let's play in a slightly more gentle way. But the smaller dog, again, is just continually going for the back in sort of impolite play. So in this interaction, we're going to see a little bit of hackles going up. And this is, we've labeled it questionable hackles because sometimes hackles can just be a sign that the dog is really excited and having a great time. But the context really matters in these sorts of interactions. So we'll go ahead and watch this.
Not at all.
So you can see a little bit of vertical play
Okay,
there.
hey.
And when the black dog went vertical, which you'll see when it slows down, um, those hackles came up. So you can see the stripe down the black dog's back. Those are her hackles coming up. The guardian of that dog called her away, and she did come away. And that's just because of, again, those hackles in that interaction. You heard a little bit of a vocalization in there too that was questionable as well. So mounting, this is something that we see from some dogs when they are playing. It can be a sign of just, they're really excited. And so mounting is just something that kind of happens with that. You can see the dogs are kind of switching who's mounting who, right? And the dog underneath there seems like relatively okay with that, right? He's not he wasn't too upset, his body wasn't too tense, his tail was still wagging, right? And then he was able to just kind of like slip out from underneath and continue playing. So this is definitely more excited play. But again, we're looking at how both dogs are acting in that situation. And we'll show an example of kind of the dangerous mounting in the next section. So you'll have something to compare that to. All right, so in this video, we're really gonna focus on, again, the body language of the dogs involved here. So looking at how focused they are, their tension, and the distribution of their weight. So are they putting their weight forward or leaning backwards? What does that actually look like? So here, the gray dog on the left is definitely a little bit tenser, right, than the dog on the right. But you can see even the dog on the right, the face and the lips got a little bit tense there. There were some lip licks that the gray dog just did. That's a sign of a little bit of tension or nervousness, trying to calm himself down. And you can see the gray dog, again, is very sort of forward leaning, right? Um, and the black dog is a little bit more curvy with his body language, which is that good relaxed sign. So the gray dog is just a little bit more tense. And so really keeping an eye out on those interactions where one dog is very much more tense than the other. All right, so sometimes when dogs get very tense, their tongue will kind of flick out. And the reason for that is because there's a lot of tension throughout their face usually. And so their lips are very tight, so their tongue can't just loll out in that sort of more relaxed way that we saw earlier. And it can be a sign, like I mentioned in the last video, of sort of discomfort, right? So the smaller brown dog there just did that tongue flick at the end. And that was just kind of showing a little bit of that tension that he was experiencing throughout that interaction with the white and brown dog. And so really looking at, again, the whole body language in order to note whether that tongue flick is because of tension or if it's just kind of, the tongue licking out. All right, so lack of consent in play is something that's a pretty bad sign. So here in this video, you'll see the bigger dog really wants to play with that corgi there, and the corgi is giving some really obvious signs that she does not want to engage. So she's, kind of looking away, walking in a different direction, just really trying to get out of that situation in any way she can, right? So it's good to really be aware of consent in all interactions between dogs. If one dog is being, again, like overbearing or, trying to be too energetic with a dog that doesn't want it and they're not listening, that's definitely something that could potentially, tip into something more dangerous. So definitely paying attention to that, and again, giving your dog a break or calling them away from situations like that. Before we talked about cutoff cues and what those look like, and we saw a dog that listened to the cutoff cue and play was able to resume in a very safe way. And so you'll see in this interaction here, that black and white dog is trying to kind of cut off the play and walk away and do something else. But the brown dog is following along behind and still trying to instigate play. And now you've kind of got them in that corner. That can be a really uncomfortable place too for a dog that's trying to get away, having that barrier. So you can see at that last little bit, again, the black and white dog trying to cut off that interaction. So definitely, watching out for this. If a dog is trying to cut off an interaction and walk away, and your dog isn't listening, going in there and trying to call your dog away, making sure that the other dog is feeling safe and having a good time. All right, so this is that video from earlier when we saw the hackles, but this time I want you to pay attention to the vocalizations that you're hearing from the smaller dog.
That's legit what it sounds like, as terrifying as it is.
Yeah, it's like
It's weird, right?
It's very loud.
Isn't it?
And it doesn't sound friendly.
No.
So again, just like the people in the video were saying, right, it doesn't really sound very friendly versus the sort of play growls and barks that we were hearing in the last vocalization video, right? So if your dog is playing at this level of intensity, it might end up in, one of those interactions like what we saw when the hackles went up, right? Just because of kind of that stress and the intensity of the play that the smaller dog is exhibiting. All right, does anybody have any questions about those sort of more ambiguous play styles that we just looked at? Okay, so now that we've talked about some of that more questionable play behaviors and the safe behaviors, we're going to talk about some of the red flag behaviors, right? If your dog is doing any of the following behaviors, it's definitely time to take them home, get them out of that interaction, and potentially consider smaller play groups or maybe even working with a trainer just to help you understand why your dog is doing these different behaviors. All right, so first we're going to talk about displacement behaviors, and this is just kind of one of the ways that a dog can show that they're very uncomfortable. So you saw a shake off there. That brown dog is pretty uncomfortable, even being in proximity, even through a barrier with the black dog there. And so shaking off is a displacement behavior, and then going away and sniffing and staying away is definitely showing that that smaller dog doesn't really want to do anything, even when that person over tried to get him to engage. He looked, but then he went right back to sniffing. So again, that can be a sign of pretty high stress levels in a dog. And just really making sure that if you're seeing a lot of those shake offs or lip licks or going away to sniff things, your dog might be a little bit overwhelmed. And so just making sure that they're getting a break. Okay, teeing is a type of play that again is just a little bit more aggressive. So you can see the black dog and the tan dog on the right there. The black dog's head is over the tan dog's back, and they're staying perpendicular to each other, right? And now that dog is on top of the tan dog, and you can see the tension in that dog's body, right? The lips are forward, the body is straight, versus the tan dog who's just a little bit more loose and floppy, and trying to play with the other tan dog there. But you can see again that black dog is just staying with his chin over the tan dog. And you can see here the tan dogs go off playing by themselves, which is great. But you can see again that black dog is still very, very tense, and then turns around and goes back towards that tan dog that he was teeing again. So that's just showing again that sort of focus, right? That is a little bit more than friendly. We don't want to see those types of behaviors from our dogs in play situations, because that is again showing a little bit too much intensity, and it can very easily boil over into more aggressive interactions. All right, so this is an example of More dangerous mounting. This is where one dog really doesn't want it. So again, we've got that tense black dog from earlier, and the black dog that is mounting him is not at all paying attention to how the black and tan dog is responding, which is basically with a total stillness, right? And you can see that the black dog on top is really not, the tail's not wagging. Their body isn't as, like loose and friendly as what we were seeing in the other videos. So this was definitely something that, could go poorly after this video clip. All right, so this is going to show a more dangerous version of ignoring cutoff cues. So again, we've got these same dogs, and that black dog, the black and tan one, again, gave a cutoff cue to the bigger black dog, and that dog ignored it and went right back to the face of the other dog. And again, that sort of tension and the chin going higher in the black and tan dog, he's pretty displeased with that situation. And now you've got that chin over, right? Another pretty, more aggressive type behavior. So again, this is, that dog really wants to end that interaction, but is being ignored. And then at the end here, you can see he's basically had enough and he goes after him. And so that's just showing, again, ignoring a cutoff cue in that instance where one of the dogs is very, very tense and forward with their weight distribution and very, with that high chin going over the back. All of those together are showing some pretty dangerous interactions, ignoring those cutoff cues. Now here in this video, we're going to see a little bit more of that example of weight distribution and the forward weight distribution. So you can see in that smaller dog, very tense, right? A little bit crouched and tucked. The brown and white dog is just trying to engage, right? So you saw that play bow, and the little dog went after him, but you can see there's quite a bit of intensity there in how he's moving. And you can see a little bit of a shake off, right, from that dog. And then the smaller dog pins him. So you can see the paw came out and that forward distribution of the weight. The tail is very still, right? It's not wagging. And you can see that again in this instance, right, where the dog on the left is doing a great job of just backing off and showing that they're totally friendly and nothing to worry about, but you're still seeing the smaller dog get that sort of more forward weight, and then that pinning, of course, is really not something we ever want to see in dogs that are playing with each other. All right, does anyone have any questions about those different types of unsafe interactions that we just looked at? Okay. So the best way to prevent unsafe interactions is to facilitate safe play. And you can do this by following these guidelines here on the screen. So the best way to introduce dogs is to meet on neutral territory. So what that means is you're not in your yard or the other dog's yard or in their house or anything like that, but you're in a neutral enclosed area, maybe something like an empty dog park or a friend's yard that they haven't been to before, right? A kind of new space that really is not home to either of the dogs that you're introducing. If you are introducing dogs, it's really best to let them interact with each other off leash. And the reason for that is that any tension on the leash can add tension into that interaction between the dogs and can result in some escalated and more aggressive behaviors. If you have to introduce your dogs on leash, it's really important to keep the leashes loose and to keep yourself out of the picture as much as you can. So kind of hanging around on the outside of the interaction, staying calm and happy, and keeping your energy very, very still for your dog, so that you can really just watch how they're interacting and help them to feel safe. When your dogs are playing, it's really important to actively supervise them. And by that, I just mean to be pretty close nearby and watching to make sure that their play remains appropriate and fun for all the dogs involved in the play. And kind of on that note as well, it's really a good idea to give your dog periodic breaks from play. So even if nothing bad is happening, right, just getting them used to the fact that you can call them away from play and that they get good things out of that, right? Maybe doing a short training session or giving them some treats for coming away, getting them to drink water and catch their breath. This is going to be especially important as it gets hotter and hotter out here in the summer, right? We want to make sure that our dogs aren't getting overheated as they're playing. And then again, it's really important to give dogs a break if you are noticing a lack of consent in play, right? So if one dog, again, is being pretty overbearing and another is clearly uncomfortable and doesn't want to continue that interaction, that's a good idea, a good time to step in and then calmly and happily call your dog away, and make sure that you're always prioritizing consent when you are watching your dogs play. It's also really important to be ready to leave the play if necessary. And, there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's good to just remain calm as possible, but note that if there's a dog there that you're just like, I don't really think my dog likes this dog, you can walk out of the situation, and that's totally fine and really in your dog's best interest to do. It's a good idea to always keep yourself as calm and playful as possible to, again, avoid adding tension to interactions that might already be kind of unsafe. So if you raise your voice or you are using a stern tone, right, that might signal to other dogs that things are getting serious, right, regardless of kind of what you were intending with that, whether it was to call your dog away or anything else. That might, again, kind of escalate behaviors in some of the other dogs that are around and are less familiar with you and with your tones of voice. Another thing to avoid is grabbing at collars, right? As this will likely just prompt the dog to kind of avoid you and return to that unsafe interaction. And if you do get the collar, you're again adding tension into that situation, might actually make the situation worse. So using food lures or using a recall cue or anything like that to just get your dog out of those situations. And then, of course, most importantly, if your dog has a known history of aggression with other dogs, especially if they've injured another dog, avoid bringing them into situations where they're likely to get aggressive, right? It's better for them and it's better for the dogs around them to just be kept out of those situations so nothing bad happens. If they do have a dog friend that you know that they get along really well with, you can arrange meetups with that specific dog in areas where other dogs won't be around, right? In order to still help them get their social needs met without putting any other dogs in danger unnecessarily. If you have a dog that's unpredictably aggressive, it's really important that you work with a trainer to help you change your dog's emotions around other dogs, right? And to really help them learn how to play with other dogs. So this is a great infographic that just shows that our dogs are on kind of a spectrum of playfulness or extroversion, if you want to think of it that way, right? Some dogs just love all other dogs, right? But that's only about 10% of all dogs that fit into the category. And most of those are puppies, right? You can see that the majority of the dogs are in the next two sections. So that's dog tolerant, where they get along with most dogs and they'll tolerate sort of rude behaviors, right? They're relatively calm on leash, all of that. And then dog selective, where they have some friends maybe, but they're picky about new dogs, and interacting with unfamiliar dogs might be a little bit uncomfortable for them. And then we have the dog aggressive dog that really just wants nothing to do with other dogs, or who maybe has a friend or two, but is extremely sensitive in all of their interactions with even those dogs, right? So they can be kind of a jerk in play, right? Even if they're not necessarily intending to be that way. So it's really a good idea to assess your dog and see which of these categories they fit into, right? If your dog is in the latter two categories, they may not really like the dog park or doggy daycare, right? Or they might be more, tense in those situations, not have a good time. And then if your dog is dog aggressive, again, it's best to contact a trainer for management and training advice, just to help make your life easier, and your dog's life less upsetting, right? And don't feel bad if your dog has trouble around other dogs, right? Much like people, some dogs are really introverted and only prefer the company of just a few close friends, or maybe just really would rather not interact, and that's okay, right? So part of facilitating safe play for your dog is going to be really looking at what they want out of play, right? Maybe they don't want to play with other dogs. Maybe they just want to play with you, and that's okay. You don't have to force them to interact with other dogs in order to get those social needs met. And again, keeping play groups small for the dogs that generally prefer that. And just to have kind of a more controlled environment for dogs that are a little less predictable in their friendliness. And just to finish off the presentation for today, this is a fun video of some shelter dogs playing and having a great time with their dog and human friends. All right. So now that we've gone over all of this all of these different aspects of safe dog play, and what that looks like and how to facilitate that with our dogs, it's definitely something to consider to reach out to us if you have any more questions about safe dog play, or you're wanting some more resources on that. And then you can also reach out to a qualified trainer to help you over a more ongoing and long-term basis, to change those emotions in your dog, to help them learn how to safely interact with other dogs. And so this is just, again, a little graphic of what to look for when you are seeking out a trainer. So making sure that you're asking, what's going to happen if your dog gets it right, what's going to happen if they get it wrong, and how are they really rewarding your dog, and really focusing on finding a dog or finding a trainer that is going to really respect your dog and use reward-based training and work at those underlying emotions. All right. Does anyone have any last questions before we close out here? Okay. Well, I'd like to thank Purina again for making this community connection event possible. And thank you all so much for coming to this talk. We really appreciate your support. And if you learned even one thing from this presentation that you found useful, please consider donating so that we can continue to provide these services free of charge to the community. I really appreciate your time here, and I hope you got a lot of good information. So thank you all for supporting the Santa Fe Animal Shelter.